again, and welcome back to Just Saying Wisdom. This is Janine Thompson, and I'm outside on my porch enjoying the beautiful scenery of the roses that we just got. It's almost time to plant them in the yard, and I can't hardly wait. But this week's we're talking about the letter S in the Treasure series, which stands for sharing and sowing our wisdom and sending things out. See what happens. So I hope that you'll enjoy this message. Again, it was a little too windy to film the whole thing outside, but we do the best we can. So thanks again for being here. I hope you'll like and subscribe and just listen to the lesson, and I hope that you get a lot out of it. So here we go. Imagine just for a minute a world with no stories. No books stacked on nightstands, no dog-eared pages, no just one more chapter that turns into three, no paintings that make you pause, no quilts stitched with pieces of someone's life, no handwritten notes tucked into drawers for the days when you need a little courage. Imagine never being read to, never hearing your grandmother begin with, "Well, back before we had cars," and you're already wide-eyed and leaning in. No letters in the mailbox, the real kind, ink on paper, with a stamp slightly crooked because someone cared more about sending it than perfecting it. Let me ask you, have you ever received one of those? Not a text, not an email, not a row of emojis doing their best but not quite getting there. I remember the first time I heard the word emoji, I thought, after what was that, or what is that? Then I thought, when someone explained it to me, I thought it sounded a little emotionally underqualified. Because here's the truth. Stories, letters, art, words, they don't just decorate life. They anchor it. They connect us to where we've been and gently guide us toward where we're going. This week in Treasure, we're on the letter S. Sow, share, send it out. Because every word you speak, every story you tell, every memory you take time to capture, it plants something. Sometimes it's in your own heart. Sometimes in someone else's life. Sometimes in places you'll never see. But it lands. It always lands. Well, I learned that in a way I didn't expect. I'm just an ordinary mom, the kind that writes little stories at the kitchen table for her kids. Not because anyone asked me to, but because that's how I loved them. One day, almost on a whim, I entered one of those stories into a local writing contest. And I won. First place. A feature in the paper. A check for $100. And an invitation to read my story aloud at the governor's office. I thought, wow, well, I can handle this. Public speaking, piece of cake. I was wrong. When they called my name and I walked up to that podium, my knees knocked so loud I was fairly certain security got alerted. And then I opened my mouth to speak, and nothing came out. Fear had completely locked the door. Somehow I stumbled through it, voice shaking, hands not cooperating, and my dignity questionable. And then when it was over, I turned to my sister hoping for a little comfort, and she just looked at me and said, "Wow, you really botched that." Sisters, always there for you. And yet, that story still won. It still mattered. It still reached people. because the seed had already been planted long before I ever stepped up to the podium. All I had to do was show up and send it out. That's the part we forget. We think the delivery has to be perfect. We think our voice has to be steady. We think we have to feel confident before we share. But seeds don't wait for perfection. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They're meant to be released, not rehearsed forever. And history reminds us of this too. Without the Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, would we understand hope in the middle of fear? Without Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, would we see how powerful purpose can be? Those were seeds, and they're still growing. So now I'll ask you, what stories are sitting at your kitchen table? What have you lived that someone else might need? What have you learned the hard way that could become someone else's encouragement? What joy have you tasted that deserves to be remembered? You don't have to be perfect. You might shake, your voice might wobble. Someone might even give you less than stellar feedback afterwards. But if you send it out, it will land. So write it, say it, record it, send the letter, plant the seed, because some treasures were never meant to be buried. They were meant to be sown. So tell your stories, share your wisdom, and leave a little light behind you. Just saying. Well, we made it through another episode, and I'm sure happy to have you here with me and join me for a cup of tea on the porch. And I hope that you'll join me next week when we talk about the letter U. And